the internet Zoom people by looking at this camera. Then I will avert my eyes from you, and I will look at the people here so they see me focusing on them. But then, of course, I would like to see the people, so I will turn here and look at the screen and see many people's faces on Zoom. So divided attention only in eye movement, not in heart or mind or anything at all. So I want to welcome the people that are here in the room, a very different looking room, is it not? And a very different feel. And that will be one of our really important tasks as a family, a wide family, a family here, a family across the Atlantic, across the country, to keep that feeling of togetherness here, regardless of the form it takes. COVID has taught us a lot of hard lessons. It's also made some opportunities that we weren't availing ourselves of yet, and it launched us into that. And so for that, I'm very grateful. We're doing a sort of a combination of special things today, and the readings are within the perspectives and offered to us by the team. Our focus is on language. We introduced the VisionWorks document last week and had our first study on Wednesday about the values and the way that it's expressed in that. And the team, the revision team, the review team, the VisionWorks writing team, thought it would be a really good idea to also present our language guidelines, which flows out of and actually affects VisionWorks, but it's the hard one. So it's a chewy, tough, hard topic today, and I'm assuming that nobody that's sitting here is going to get up and run away with the toughness of it. So just hang in there. You'll be fine. And for those of you for whom it's new, we welcome feedback. We also obviously are feeling the loss from our community of someone very dear, and we're going to be referring to that in a little bit. So I am welcoming you, and I'm also reading to you. I'm reading it because I want to make sure I've got all the details, but it's not just words. It's really extremely important, and now that we have some people sitting here, again, we're sitting on this land. We're occupying this land. And there's a line from a song from a Disney movie, for goodness sakes, and about the idea that if you think you walk on a piece of land, you own it, and you can take it. And so we are dealing with that history. So I just read this to you. Each Sunday we begin our service by acknowledging that West Hill, the building, the people, are on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nations lands, which lands were previously occupied by the Seneca and Huron-Wendat First Nations. So previously occupied and then taken. This place is and will continue to be home to Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes of the past, and we're doing that, but I think we all feel we could be doing that a little better. And support the reconciliation in the present, and I think we're doing that, but we could do it better. And moving forward by engaging and celebrating our Indigenous community and moving forward together with kindness and respect. And then there's a nice paragraph that's been added there. For those of you that don't live in this area, I'm pretty sure the words could apply to your area as well, and to the people that lived there before. And so it's a wide work. It's a work across the whole globe. The work, the literature now on colonization and paternalism and that, you can really get educated, you'll really get sad, but you'll really get motivated to do something. We have 94 calls of action that West Hill spent a week on each for a long, long time. And I recall, I think I've mentioned this before, we had a long table here one day with Greta had written every call to action on a piece of purple ribbon, and it was all splayed here. And I believe, I could be incorrect, so no, there's more people here to correct me today. Whoa, okay. I believe there was a line down the middle, the 2 rows idea, and that we would move the ribbon over onto the other side when it had been fulfilled. And as far as I know, and I could be corrected here, but I don't think we can move a ribbon yet. Not completely over to the other side. So work to be done, good work to be done. Hard work and good work. That's why we need to do it together. So I welcome you in the building. I welcome you on Zoom. I welcome you that you can see each other. So I'm going to do this from now on. Now, Now, I need to ask a few questions. This is a very experimental Sunday, very experimental Sunday. So what I hadn't asked, if the people on the screen can see the people here. No. Okay, well, you can hear us, yes. Okay, so I would just like you to wave at the people on the screen even though they can't see you. Okay, they are waving, the people in the building are waving, and now the people on the screen can wave, and you see that, right? So they're watching you. Oh, look at that. They're friendly. They're very friendly. So that's all together, and what you can't see is the crew here. And so we have Glenn, as always, commanding the studio. So Glenn, but you can't see him, but you could wave at Glenn. He would like that. Jill, you don't have to wave at Glenn. No, that's Glenn's partner. I'm sure she waved at him already this morning. And then we now have, for the first time back in the building, Peter. So the people here are waving at Peter, and Peter's waving at them. And could the screen wave to Peter? Peter is in charge of the PowerPoint and sundry. And so this is this together, and we want to always keep that. That's really, really important. So, and then again, I want to recognize, we've just sort of done it, but if you were here earlier, you folks were here a bit early, to see what it takes, what kind of technical expertise, time, troubleshooting constantly, right to the moment of 10:30, there's troubleshooting going on to make this happen. So we recognize the time Glenn puts into this immense amount of time. And Peter, from home when he's been working, and today here, and all the people that help with putting things together, all the people behind the scenes that have still carried on doing things that West Hill does, the backpacks, different community efforts, the keeping in touch team, the trying to make sure that we don't leave someone out if they're not well or something like that. That's a lot of time and effort. It's beautiful. It's time consuming, so we acknowledge it today, that's a gift too. We also acknowledge those of you that are giving financially to West Hill. Again, that kind of stuff, if you looked at this stuff, you'd know it costs money. It costs money to make an organization go. That's the sort of the awkward thing. I'm not feeling awkward at the moment about it because I know it costs money and I know we need to support it. So those of you that haven't considered that, think about it, ask some questions if you want to support that. It would be very, very much appreciated. We're going to be needing new equipment to make a bigger something. I forget what. We're doing something bigger on a screen or something, and that's going to be exciting, but again, it will cost. So please consider helping us with that. Are there any announcements? We're going to be talking about our dearest friend, but announcements from anyone else? Anita, you have an announcement. Anita.
I do. Good morning, everyone, and all the people I can't see in the church. It's very exciting. You will have seen in the e-blast several requests for people to help join on the search committee for a supply minister and for a minister when Greta retires. I now have, I'm pleased to say, 3 other people joining me, so I won't be making this momentous decision on my own. I was a little worried for a while I might be. But please, if any of you would like to join, please join us. We've been given a pastoral relations liaison now. Her name is Donna Bowman-Woodall, and she lives in Huntsville. And the joy of Zoom, she will be able to help us and guide the search committee, so we don't have to make this up on our own. So come on down and join us, please. Let me know if you'd like to be part of this. I'm sure it's going to be a very fun committee. Thank you.
I'll just remind everybody about Scott's sessions that are happening on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. And the first one was this past Wednesday. So there are 2 more coming up, right, Scott?
Yep.
At 2 o'clock. And then following that, we'll take a week off. And then after that, our discussions about the course from the University of Alberta will begin also on Wednesdays. And I was interested to see this week in the Toronto Star on September 30th, the day for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The Toronto Star listed 8 things that you can do beyond wearing an orange shirt. And one of the things they listed was the course from the University of Alberta that we will be engaging in. So that was affirming. And anyway, so we're looking forward to that. But we'll see you first for the next 2 sessions of Scott's and Scott's leadership on the VisionWorks document. So that's it.
Thank you, Deb. Mike, anything?
Thank you, Scott. Just a few things having to do with the board. So good morning, West Hill and friends far and wide. Our weekly activities continue with the wellness group Tuesday afternoon. Deb just mentioned the VisionWorks presentations that will also take place on the Wednesday. Thursday coffee continues at 10 a.m. We are planning to have a congregational meeting towards the end of the month, but there are a number of moving pieces that need to be clarified before we do that. Our next board meeting will be on Tuesday, October the 12th, and we've made a commitment to change the timing of that to start at 1 p.m. so that those that are far and wide can participate. And in particular, our beloved treasurer, John McKechnie in Edinburgh, finds it a little difficult for us to start our meetings at midnight his time. So this isn't just to accommodate him, but it's to give us that freedom and to try and see how that's going to work. So that's Tuesday, October the 12th. And as always, I welcome questions, comments, and suggestions by email or phone, or even put a message in the chat here, and I will get back to you. Back to you, Scott. Thank you.
Any other announcements from anyone? Okay. Not long ago in this room, Jeanne Hamel was looking at a large screen of a lot of you, and we were celebrating her 101st birthday. And the heavy, sad, difficult to even imagine in some ways news we shared was that Jeanne Hamel passed away. And I think we have a picture for those of you that have not known her, and I'm real sorry you haven't. Jeanne Hamel has been there, beautiful. Can the people here see that? I want to say that each person we have lost over the years here, there's no difference in importance of their value as a human being at all. Some of the emphasis on Jeanne is just because she's lasted so darn long, and she gave with such personality and such consistency in the community, the wider community, absolutely, things we didn't even know about and hear. When Jeanne started not feeling well, and there was complications with that, she dictated what she would like in a service of remembrance for herself. And she's actually included other people in that idea of what it would be to celebrate her life. And so, Peter, the next slide, we are holding a celebration of Jeanne's life this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m. We'll be delivering it from here with the piano and fulfilling Jeanne's wishes of it to have lots of music. But she has no control over what we say about her. We can get to say whatever we like about her. What was so beautiful to have been part of is, I have here an envelope. Nora, Jeanne's daughter, has returned it. And, the whole thing. Babette Oliveira's daughter, had the idea of, if Jeanne is in the hospital, why don't we take her some music on a CD or CD, whatever. iPhone, thank you, to play for her. Brilliant idea. So Babette passed that to me. I passed it to Greta. Greta worked out which pieces of music we had available, sent them over to Rob Ward, who took an old phone, charged it up, registered it, put the app on it. I don't even know what I'm saying. I think that's what he did. I don't understand that. Got it all together, downloaded and everything. And in an effort to get this to Nora or to the hospital, I ended up phoning the hospital, the nursing station, who then invited me to go up, put it beside Jeanne and sit with her. So for 2.5 hours, Jeanne had this community effort, right from Babette singing to Rob engineering it, to the staff allowing it. So for 2.5 hours, she heard West Hill's music as I held her hand for that time. She was not responsive really a flicker of an eye, I thought, when she heard the music start, which I'm sure happened. Anyway, so I thank the people that were involved in that, and how beautiful that is. So as always, and sometimes with the full people here, but we have our way of saying we honor and saying farewell. So Peter, if you could put the slide on, we have the our song of farewell, and you'll hear it sung as a solo first, and then we can join in singing. Now, you're in masks, it's up to you, but you're going to hear it anyway. We'll listen to it together. So, oh yes, thank you for that. As I was preparing to announce this and to deal with it, I came across a quote by Helen Keller. Now, Helen Keller had a strong belief in a very traditional Christian belief about the hereafter, about life, about what was needed. Incredible person. And she wrote this, and I thought, I lifted it right up and brought it as is to this service. And this is what she said. If there were no life beyond this earth life, some people I have known would gain immortality by the nobility of our memory of them. With every friend I love who has been taken into the brown bosom of the earth, a part of me has been buried there. But their contribution of happiness, strength, and understanding to my being remains to sustain me in an altered world. It's an altered world without Jeanne Hamel with us. But Helen would have said this exactly about Jeanne. Whatever the beliefs, and we do, and we'll talk about this later, move beyond those beliefs that divide. Whatever, Jeanne is alive in our hearts and memories, and her modeling, her example of life will be there forever. So in honor of Jeanne Hamel, we sing.
Go.
Something we don't want to have to do, but we do it together, and that is good and helps. And as Jeanne would want, of course, for us to focus more broadly, and we just take a time now to, not in a trivial way, not in a superficial way, although we just mention things or just think about them for a moment, but I know that during this past week you have been hit in your heart and in your mind by the news of different things happening, by things still happening that shouldn't be still happening, and by efforts that need to be made. And so we take this time to acknowledge in our big world, in our big reality, that There are places of hurt. There are people hurting. There are people being harmed. There are groups being harmed. There are groups being ignored. There are groups being oppressed. There are efforts to do good that are being quashed. And so we hold that big, hard reality. Again, we know more about our world than generations before us ever had even a taste of. You would get an occasional telegram, maybe about an earthquake, 3 months later. So we are so pressed in at every side by news. And so we attempt to hold it on our own, and then we come together and hold it together. And so I'm just going to, Peter, the slide with the kind of needs that we're remembering, honoring, and not just saying, but also asking what can we do in these even supportive things. So in the hardships, the suffering, the war, violence, hunger, thirst, disease, oppression, and discrimination, we think of the places and the people that are suffering that way, and we hold them together, and together we say, in this our time of need, may love
abound.
The people that are sitting here today, that's the sound of the whole group. Kimmy, and I'm assuming you said it as well, and they would have heard you. So we're blending this in this our time of need, and the operative word there is our. The interconnectedness of life puts that word first and foremost, our need. If it's someone's hurting, it's ours. And then we open it for a time of sharing, and so there could be you people, or it could be people on the screen, to share something, a milestone, a celebration, news about someone in our midst that doesn't come on Zoom, and there's quite a number of them, and or anything we should know at all, or just a worry that's on your heart. Please share it with us, and then it's ours together. So anyone would like to share? I'm now going to inspect the screen.
Hi, Scott. Welcome.
Hello, Jean.
I want to say that my son just turned 50 a week ago, and I am past 50 actually. And
logically, so yes.
But I don't feel older than 50, and I'm sure that resonates with many people in this group. And the other thing I want to mention is that my service club is 100 years old. It's Optimus International, and they have big celebrations that are global yesterday and today for the 100th birthday of this organization that is built to help women and girls. Thank you.
In this abundant blessing. About the organization and about your age. Now I'm looking at the screen, and I'm going to put someone in the spot, and I'm going to say, Betty Henderson, how is your ankle? If you could unmute, we would be able to celebrate that with you, because you are smiling.
I moved into a retirement residence for some respite care since I'm not able to walk. So but I'm fine. It's just when I get sitting in one place, I can't move till somebody comes and moves me.
Well, we will attempt to move you through this service together, move you in heart if you can't move out of a stationary position. I'm glad you're here, Jean. Betty, we're all thinking of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Anita, I see your hand.
Yeah, I'd like to follow on another woman thing. Yesterday, I listened to a talk by Senator Mary Lou McPhedran, and she was talking about the extreme discrimination against women in politics and how badly they are treated, abused, terrible things done language-wise, emails coming into them, painting on their headquarters and so on. And it was really quite shocking to hear, and what goes on in the Senate too, where 49% of the Senate is women, but still they don't seem to have the power that the men do. So in this time of need,
May love abound.
Abound.
anything like that, if it's something that other people can share, I know I phoned you right in the middle of that, Anita. You were watching that webinar. Pass those things on. Those issues are so timely and important, and that issue is not done yet at all. Some places not even started. So, is there anyone? I'll turn and look at you.
Yes.
Is there anything from the group that are here?
I would like to.
Okay. Who is that? That was Mel. Mel. Okay. Do you see
Yes,
Mel?
I would just like us all to keep our very dear friend Annie in our hearts and minds today. She's having a medical struggle and trying to cope with whatever her medical problem is, which is not known to us. However, please keep her in your hearts because she's having a hard time. So in this our time of need.
May love
abound.
For those of you that do not know, Annie is our administrative genius, passionate, caring. The words you read about Jeanne, those are her crafted words. She has the heart and the mind that we just celebrate, and we ache for her in these difficult times. So yes, thank you for that, Mel. Anyone else? I'm checking the screen here. Has anyone put their hand up? David, I see David.
Yes. I haven't said anything for quite some time about Joy's situation, which has deteriorated. A year ago now, she had to begin using a walker. In the spring, she fell and developed drop foot, so that she had to use the walker a great deal more and cannot walk anywhere without it. So I don't remember the other woman's name a few moments ago who commented on her not being able to move until somebody comes and move her.
Betty.
Joy's, yes, thank you. Joy's still able to get up and push herself around with the walker, but only that way. And in addition to the walking, there is any too much movement, too much noise, too much bright lights sets off a dizziness and a spinning in the head, which takes anywhere from a half an hour to 3 days. And some years ago, it was serious enough to last 3 months, but it's now occurring frequently. She can literally turn too quickly to look at something on the other side of the room or out the window of the car, and it's bad. And she's been feeling kind of down about it at times. So hold her in your hearts, please. Thank you.
David, in this our time of need,
Me love abound.
Can she hear us, David?
Not right now. She is sleeping,
Okay.
which
Okay,
is why
we-
I'm taking the liberty to speak.
I understand. Just send that to her when she wakes. Vertigo is a highly distressing thing to be dealing with. And again, you hear something wrong with some part of our body, and you think, I haven't even thought about my balance for I don't know how long. Didn't even think about it. Took it for granted completely. Or if you have some other issue, all of a sudden it's not working, and you think, I haven't even thought about that, and now it's so important in my life.
That's right.
Yeah. So we feel for that. For any of you dealing with something that's not going away or getting worse, that's the hard thing about these bodies of ours. And so thank you for sharing that, David. I'm going to check the screen again, or if someone lets me know that someone... Kevin at the cottage.
Actually, we got home last night, Scott, so
Kevin
we're here.
Kevin at home. That was fast, very fast, yes.
Yes, that's right. Now, I wanted to share, we owe a debt to West Hill and Ruth and our First Nations group for making us really aware of the issues of our First Nations friends and neighbors. And to celebrate the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, we had the Three Sisters soup for 14 people at the cottage, and we said the blessing. All double vaccinated, and my sister, our sister-in-law, made us genuine bannock, which went very well with it, as you can imagine. And so the good news is there was some awareness around and some empathy for it, and in this abundant blessing.
We share the joy.
Share the joy.
However, the fact that we had to do it, and I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back here, because sure, we've moved the dial from awareness in our own lives, but we know that we've still got a long way to go. And so in this, our time of need,
May love
abound.
Those of you that are far away, and I think I've explained it at maybe in one breakout room behind me, checking, there's a totem. And what we don't have, and we do own, are big banners with large letters that say, honor the treaties, which you ought to do even if you don't understand Indigenous issues. If Canada has made a treaty, then we need to honor it. That's just ethical. That's just integrity. And they were always there when we had a larger scope here. Those banners were there. And we tried to yes, and so thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Ruth, for your work in that. And I don't even know what some of that tastes like, so that'll be something to explore as well. Thank you for that. Anyone else on the screen? I'm searching. Chris from England.
Hello. Can I just mention the terrible murder in this country of Sarah Everard by a member of the police force, of all people, which has made us all feel terrible. It's thrown everything into confusion regarding Cressida Dick and her so far refused resignation. Most of all, it's shattered confidence in our police force for many people. Personally, I'm still happy with them generally, but this has caused terrible suffering all round, not least to the family of Sarah. So I would like us to think of all those involved at this time. In this hour of need, may love abound.
Any other? We're going to deal with that. We're just having a little, this in our experimental first time, we're just having a little confusion with some sounds from the basement here. We're going to deal with that. I don't know if it's affecting things a little bit. Yeah, okay. We will deal with it. We shall. Anyone else on the screen? Any sharing? Just looking at all your lovely faces, smiling. The people here have lovely faces as well, but they're in masks, so... any other? Okay, so we move to celebrate every organization, every person. You can think of them. You can think of people we don't even know that are working hard to take that arc, which doesn't move by itself, and press it towards justice in the world, press it toward compassion. Or maybe a better way to put it is because of compassion, they're pressing it towards justice for all. So for those people, those heroes, and they can be unsung and unknown, or they can be famous, and they can be organizations. So just in your mind right now, hold those people, those places, those groups that are maybe are asking you for money all the time because they need to do their work, and maybe you have to say no, but you can cheer on their work. So for everyone doing good, which includes the folks right here, in this abundant blessing, we share.
Joy.
I'm going to take silence. Might be a little disturbed if you're hearing noises from elsewhere, but I think it's important that we take a little bit of silent time. And on the screen that may feel odd, but for any of you, for all of us who are dealing with something that's not ideal, that's not what we would have wanted, or we've got a diagnosis hanging over us and we haven't heard what's going to happen, or we have heard and it's heavy. We've got some difficult issues relationship-wise. Who doesn't at times have difficult issues? So this is a time for you not to mention it, because sometimes you've not mentioned it to anybody, and it's just as real as can be. Or you've mentioned it to one or two. But right now, you're holding it in your heart, and we're holding it together. So in the weeks coming, if you're aware of that, whatever that is, just know that because you matter, it matters to us. In a connective way about the information, but we don't need it. We just need you to know that it matters. So let's just take a time of silence, and you can use that time in any way you wish. But if you wish, then hold that, whatever that is, and feel us holding our hearts and your hearts together. In this our time of need, may love abound. We say the words of commitment. They started off just as I don't remember what they were first called. They're still engraved on the mirror in the lounge, if you notice that. There's lots of changes here, but the mirror still has the engraved words that Greta put there. And they can become rote, as anything can become. If you've said something a lot, it can become less meaningful, which is why a couple times we've scrambled the words around and put them in different order. Well, I mean, different screens, not the words. It made sense. It was just in a different order. And so sometimes we say it slowly, sometimes quickly. I've tried to change the picture. I've got some autumn sumac on it now, as opposed to a more summery look. But if they've become meaningless, just take a time. Don't say them this time, or whatever. Or less meaningful, not meaningless, but they really are us holding up the origin of the word worship, which many churches are doing now about a person or an idea, force, whatever. The idea of worship is what is worthy. Worthy. And so when we take those values, when we take the idea of compassion, we lift it up as high as we can as worthy. We're saying that is goodness. That is how we want to be. That's how we wish for the world. We put the word integrity up there. We put the word, and we used to have them hanging from the ceiling, if you recall, on streamers and banners, these words that we're saying that's worthy. We fall, and I love the idea that we fall from them, but we keep refreshing and recommitting to them. And that's why we say it like this. We say it together. You're welcome to say it at home or take a piece of it, stick it on your mirror or whatever. But it's that aspirational, I want to be like that. I think in some ways I am. And I hope you celebrate when those words are really in your life and they're operating well. I hope you celebrate this. I'm so glad that I feel compassion there, that I'm working for justice here. It's worth celebrating. And I hope we also say, oh, I could do better in that one. I could do better in working on some of my prejudices. I could do better in working on some of my unawareness of things. I could do better because those values are what I want. So it's work. It's not just saying. It's engaging with these ideas, these that are so worthy. There are people that take those attributes and attribute them to a divine person. Same attributes, same things. We can do it with or without that, but we're doing it together. So, the words of commitment. As I live
every day.
I want to be a channel of peace. May I bring love,
Where there is hatred,
healing where there is
hurt,
joy,
where there is sadness,
and hope where there is fear.
I pray
That I may always try to understand and comfort other people, as well as seek comfort from them, understanding from them, wherever possible. May I choose to be a light
in the darkness,
help in
times of need,
and a caring, honest and may justice, kindness, and peace flow from my heart forever.
Amen.
Somehow or other, I left out the enormously important fact that the earth is our home and the world our family. I didn't see that fast enough, but that's sort of the context in which that whole raft of values sits. It's because It is our home. Only one so far. Structures on Mars notwithstanding, it is still our home, and this still is our family as broadly as we can make it. Thank you to Glenn, who has worked hard to get the piano sound in this room as good as possible. Very difficult, complex stuff about Zoom recognizing things and not. And so Glenn has educated Zoom to the point where it can clearly bring the piano sound, and we're working on the next step, which is vocal sound as well. So I wanted to take two songs and put them together in a sort of a little medley, and I'm doing two things with it. We're going to be talking about the language we use to build our community and to do the work we do. And one of the main reasons in that, as you saw with VisionWorks, is that we want to be speaking and living in a way that doesn't divide up the world in what many people have worked on, as opposed to in terms of race, in terms of gender, in terms of sexual orientation, in terms of identity, in terms of culture, in terms of socioeconomic class, whatever, and also about words of theology. We want to be speaking in a way that doesn't exclude someone that doesn't happen to believe that part or this part or that part, and we can use ordinary language, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. You're going to hear some rumbles in it because it was pretty big things we took stands on way back and still stand with. And many folks were not comfortable with that and have gone their way, and many people have come here because of it. So we have worked that together. So I took two songs, and one of the songs is Jeanne's favorite song. It just happens to be the words worked with that, and it's called We Would Be One. And the tune for that is Finlandia by Sibelius, which is very familiar to many of us, with these words of we would be one, and we're going to be using that at Jeanne's celebration. And then the idea of if every woman in the world had her mind set on justice and compassion, there would be no more war. If every man, if every person, if every leader, if every nation, and we've sung this song many times. And it was another favorite of Jeanne, but I choose it as well to say that if we would follow these values together, what a different world it would be. And every time it is followed, it is a different world. And so I'm just going to put these two together. I'm trying to remember what key I started in. I can't think of it at the moment. But anyway, just enjoy these two songs melded together about being one in the way we speak and the way we live together.
Scott, we're not able to hear you.
That was interesting because the people in the room heard me, and there was no sign from anyone here that that the sound was not happening. I think it was Anita. Thank you, Anita, for saying that. I was just saying that it's a trembling, heart-trembling privilege, and I'm not exaggerating, for me to play here for us, for you. Through COVID, when it was just Glenn and me, and when we figured it out, and when it was just recordings, which is, took a lot of time for people to help with. But I'm saying something bigger than that. I'm saying that having looked at VisionWorks so carefully in the past little while, and realizing the stand West Hill has taken, and then looking at the language we use, and that we really ask of ourselves to stay within that language when we're with each other in a formal sense, I don't know where I would be playing music if it wasn't with us here. So it's tremendously meaningful to me, and a joy to. Was the sound okay on your screen? Was the sound okay? There you go, Glenn. Look at that. The sound created beautifully. Okay. So now the topic today is language on language, language about language, and it's going to be a bit of a chewy ride for a bit. There's lots of thick, not opaque, but thick thoughts, thick ideas, but they're tremendously important. So buckle your seatbelts, and if you're drifting, now some of you, I can tell if you drift, that look, you just sort of drift off, and we'll call you back. I was okay, come back. People do fall asleep in church, and we've had someone fall asleep on Zoom, and I think that's very comforting that you've joined us for your nap, and you feel comfortable with us, and that's fine. Nobody takes offense at that at all. We're together. I've asked the team, the writing team, to be with us, and I just want to check the screen. I want to make sure they're there. Anita, you're there. I see you. John, I see you. Doug, I heard you earlier, and Emily may pop on and off. Is Emily here? Okay, so she's welcome to pop on anytime she wants, and to pop off, as is anybody. So the chewy stuff is about language, is about the words we use. And I want to give a flavor first just about words, about language, about how important that is. And then I want to give a little bit about language in religion and church. That's when the rumbling starts to get a rumbling. We've actually equipped the seats in the sanctuary here with seat belts. So you will put your seat belt on for that little bit of a ride. Not that you're not familiar with this stuff, but now we're sort of going bigger in public, and we invite any feedback and comments and criticisms and challenges at all. We really mean that. We welcome it. So language, and then we're going to talk about the journey West Hill's been on about language, and we're going to have some of the team members participate in that. So I hope by the end of it we walk away saying we can talk about life and love and compassion and justice and integrity using ordinary language, and envelop the whole world in that conversation without dividing with beliefs, which is not to say that each person on the screen and here can have their own set of beliefs, without question. Nobody's meddling with that. I don't even know what most people believe here. I have no idea, unless you've actually said it out loud, which is you're right and you're right not to. It doesn't matter. What we come together is over the values. So the language was such an important and difficult topic to get. So Peter, I'm going to ask you to start some of those PowerPoint slides, and for those of you that don't see the slides, I read them. I hope you can sort of pull the meaning out of being read, and so we'll listen to other people about the idea of language. Okay, Peter, first I would. Oh. You thought we were already having technical challenges, but I've just been informed we're having more technical challenges. So I will read to you, all of you, and occasionally you will nod with an affirming and encouraging look to say, I'm getting it, it's good, I'm understanding it, or you can tell me to slow down if you wish, or whatever. So until the technical problems are solved, I'm going to read to you a few thoughts on language, and this is by a man named David Crystal, who's written a great deal about learning and language. Language has no independent existence apart from the people who use it. It is not an end in itself. It is a means to an end. And the end is to understand who you are and what your world is like. Another one, Marie Montessori, who you know from educational worlds. The development of language is part of the development of the personality. For words are the natural means of expressing thoughts and establishing, and I love this, establishing understanding between people. So to use your words to establish understanding between people. Now, I want you to picture someone that you're close to. You might live with them, you might work with them, you might be legally bound to them. And I just want to know, and if I'll just ask for a slight show of hands if you're comfortable showing me, have you ever experienced misunderstanding with that person where you didn't understand what was going on? I just want to know, has there ever been a misunderstanding between people? Yes, I think I don't think there's anyone. And if you didn't put your hand up, I want you to know right now, you have misunderstood something about your relationship. So we put your hand up for you, okay? It is common, it is normal, and often it's language. Greta and I, we both are in a profession of using words and language. And I'm telling you, the misunderstanding, even of a single word in a sentence, which has caused, a rift, a difficulty, whatever, and we know that we understood that exactly how that person meant it, because we often know what the person meant, right? We know what they meant. They meant that, even. And so all these ideas of the words are so important to build understanding. But the difficulty is, and we're going to talk about this, you don't know when you've misunderstood something. You know that speaker that does this tremendous, I think it's a TED Talk or it's something like that, where she asks an audience, she says, what do you feel like when you're wrong? What does it feel like to be wrong? And the people say, well, I feel embarrassed, I feel upset, I wish I had done better, I wish I had researched. She said, no, you don't. You feel fine. When you find out you're wrong, you feel terrible. But when you're just wrong, you feel absolutely fine. My sister, an incredibly intelligent and articulate person, said to me once when she had pronounced something as true and it turned out to be wrong, I said, you sounded so, absolutely unmovable. She says, well, I wouldn't have said it if I thought it was wrong. Of course you wouldn't. So there's the idea of not understanding. It goes along with the idea we don't know what we don't know. Same idea. We do not know that. So, Jane Wagner, we're there. Look at that. Oh, Peter. Actually, I looked at that and didn't realize you had done it. So excellent. Okay, so the next slide. Thank you, Peter. A little thank you to Peter for rescuing us there. He does this all the time. And so this says, I personally believe we develop language because of our deep inner need to complain. And I think that's a great idea. That now I love this. Look, if you're looking at the slides, I'll try and depict this for you people that aren't seeing it. The slide the quote is attributed to Jane Wagner in the book "The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe." And I put under it, because there's another, it's also attributed to Lily Tomlin, who's the humorist from whatever. But the way it looks like, it's a misunderstanding. Jane Wagner in The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe, or Lily Tomlin. So she wasn't searching for signs of intelligent life in Lily Tomlin, but that's what it looked like when I put it there. So I left it there, and I thought that's a great example of a misunderstanding. So, next slide. Rita Mae Brown said, language exerts hidden power like the moon on the tides. Now, we're going to be talking about language at West Hill, but I'm also thinking about our own language, our own words. Your use of language, the words you say, what you communicate in print, like in written or oral, your language exerts a hidden power like the moon on the tides, which is inexorable, which is unresistible, not unresistible word, cannot be resisted. And so to carry yourself that way, to realize my words exert, that's a good thing to say every day, my words exert a hidden power like the moon on the tides, so be careful. There's a little song for children in the hymn book, oh, be careful, little hands, what you do, but be careful, little lips, what you say. There's a threat that comes after it in the song, which we don't use anymore, about who is listening. But the idea is be careful what you say. Next slide. One wrong, and we've all experienced this, one wrong word or misinterpreted word can change the meaning of an entire sentence and start a war. And one right word, one kind word can grant you the heavens and open the doors. And it's so true. One word. If you look back at a conversation, I remember with one of my daughters came to me years later and quoted something, and the word in it was not right. And when we switched the word, it was, oh. Have you ever had those? Oh. And we want a lot of those O's. Next. No, I have to explain this first. If you are oh, yes, is that the next one? Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I'm going vertically instead. Yes, I'm sorry. Catherine Dunn. I have been a believer in the magic of language since at a very early age I discovered that some words got me into trouble and others got me out. And I think that's a conniving little kid, and we all do it. But we do it now, too, as adults. We do it now, too. We get into trouble. We also try and word our way out. I can tell by the look on Greta's face when I am trying to get out of trouble by my words. If I could just phrase it this way, if I could just put it, if she could just understand that what I meant was, I'm thinking, can I find the right word here? Because we do this, and she calls me on it, and should, and does, and I'm still here, so that's good. Next slide. One wrong word. Oh, I did that already. Oh, so I did that. Okay, go past that. I'm sorry, I was out of order there. Peter, thank you. This happens very often, and Peter's so patient and good. Now, if you are a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fan, which all of you are, all right, can I just see the screen for a moment? Are there people that understand? Maybe that's too hard to switch back, but Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams also wrote the Dirk Gently series of the Holistic Agency. Fabulous creative. Well, he, in one of his science fiction stories, and I can't remember one, it's a trilogy with five books, and he calls it a trilogy. Anyway, he has someone pop, I think if you're the fan, it goes in your ear. It's a babel fish. And once it goes in your ear, you can understand every language. And when they're speaking, you hear them in your own language. And I think some sci-fi people have done something with that as well. But the babelfish goes in, and so you can understand everything everybody's saying. There's another part of where you can hear what everybody else is saying. So, and I was extending it to what if you could actually hear what everyone else is thinking? So, I mean, if they ever do the blurb on the top of our heads, and you could actually see, I think we'd all stay home in a room, in a closet, and never could. Anyway, so this phrase here, from Douglas Adams, my hero. He's long gone, but my hero. Meanwhile, the poor babblefish, by effectively removing all barriers to communication between different races and cultures, has caused more and bloodier wars than anything else in the history of creation, because we actually understood everybody and we didn't like what they were saying. So there's that too. If you're going to be actually asking for feedback or asking to understand, you may be hearing things you don't wish to hear, and we have to deal with that. Next. Words are singularly the most powerful force available to humanity. They have energy and power and the ability to help and to heal, to hinder, to hurt, to harm, to humiliate, and to humble. What a great alliteration, the letter H there. To help, to heal, hinder, hurt, harm, humiliate, and to humble. Next slide. We cannot control the way people interpret our ideas or thoughts, but we can control the words and tones we use to convey them. Peace is built on understanding, and wars are built on misunderstanding. Never underestimate the power of a single word, and never recklessly throw words around. Next slide is by Anthony Doerr, a book that I know Greta loves this book. I haven't read it yet. All the Light We Cannot See. It's embarrassingly plain how inadequate language is. Have you ever been stuck in a situation and say, I don't know how to put this. I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to express this. You can walk into a forest or an ocean and say, I don't even have the words for this. And I'm so destroyed inside, I don't have words to even tell you how I feel. So they are inadequate, but we have to use them. And so the next topic I want to slide into is language and religion and history, the history of Christianity. And I'm going to do this really quickly, so you're going to feel a bit peltered by it. There's no other way to do it in the short term. But if you want a conversation about this later. But religion and Christianity, and I'm saying this very respectfully to anyone listening who has different beliefs than I do, which you don't even may not know, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the use of language. And in religion and Christianity, absolutely. The next slide shows the kinds of questions that are put to words, that words are applied to these questions. What is real? And that's called cosmological claims. Is it just this world? Is there another world? Are there many other worlds? Are there beings that are not human? Are there beings that are supreme beings? Are there beings that are supreme beings and can hear us and have a will and intervene and do things or speak? Or what? Those are cosmological, the cosmos, the big world. What's real? What's out there? And in many ways, our honest answer should be, I don't know. I don't know. There may be all sorts of things I don't know. But I have no, for instance, and I'm just going to do this because I have no belief in another world than this world. None. I see no evidence for it. I do not see the need for it, and I do not. But if you do, that's fine. That's not where any conflict would happen. But that's a cosmological. So religion and Christianity for centuries has told you what is to be believed, and that's the difference. They have told you that there is another world. It's occupied by a divine supreme being who has a will who created us. Therefore, we are subordinate to that being, whatever gender pronoun you wish to use, that there's a will for life, that being intervenes and does things if we ask or even if we don't, and doesn't intervene when we've asked. All sorts of things. They make cosmological claims, and they'll tell you that this must be believed, and in many religions must be said out loud. You must say that you do. What happened? Historical claims. So-and-so did this miracle happen because it's written down, or things about Jesus and say that Jesus died for the sins of the world, and we must believe. So historically, what happened? And religion will tell you what happened, and you must believe what happened, or you don't, and that's fine. But they make the claims. They'll say this happened. And then predictive claims are what will happen, that in the end, this will happen. And there's many, many, many books about predictions of what will happen, and that's done outside religion as well. But this will happen is claimed. It say this will happen. There will be an end times. The world will end. There'll be a new world. And I'm not being facetious about that. I'm just saying there's lots and lots of truth claims that are made by religion and by Christianity. And so the next slide is some of those answers, and I just sort of did them actually. So what is real? These things are claimed as real. What happened? These things are claimed as having happened and having some important to do with your life. And then the next big question, and this is the big philosophical question, what's true? How do you know? How do we know that? How can we rest on that? Next slide. How can we rest on what authority is telling us that that is true? And sometimes people will say, well, there's evidence, and they'll give evidence, and it's up to you whether you believe that evidence or not, or a proof. Or they'll say, logically, it's reason. There's libraries full of books that use reasoning and logic to prove that there is another realm, or prove that there is a God, or prove that there isn't. And just they use logic. And then there's also, well, it was revealed to us in a book, or in a gift of the Spirit idea that God told me. If you've ever worked with someone or something that says, God told me this about your life, and I've had that experience, and I've felt that experience. So there's revelation. And then there's just the doctrine of the church sits there and says these things are true, and you know it's true because the church says it's true. And then some of you have grown up with that. You don't question it because it's supposed to be true, or a creed or a tradition. And then there's also, I know it's true because I've experienced it. So I know it's true. And someone could say, well, how do you know that that's true? And I say, well, that's my interpretation of my experience, and that's mine. You can't take it away, but you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to agree with my interpretation of my experience. I could go into a forest and be awed by nature. You could go into a forest and be awed by the supreme creator who created it. That's your interpretation of your experience. My interpretation is different, but we're both having the same, experience of awe and wonder, and that's where the language can either divide or bring us together. So, and the next slide is what must be believed, and for some religions ask you to say it out loud. Someone very dear to me was told that she had to say out loud that she believed in a Trinity, and that was we've been through that very difficult, bumpy road, and we're still here, and I'm very grateful for that. But it was a hard thing. You must believe this. You must say this, and what must be done? You're not allowed to, You must worship on Sundays, or you can't wear these clothes, or you can't, sex, tons and tons of rules about, there's rule, what must be done, you must do this. So West Hill went on a journey, and they, the next slide, they asked the same questions. They were asking the same questions, same sort of thing. And the next slide, same sort of thing. And then they started reading, and I just put a couple for the next slide. I just put a couple of the authors and the ideas that this church tangled with to learn a little different about words used in religion and Christianity. And so they tackled this next slide, tackled these ideas of wording that's in hymns and in the Bible, and about the divine will, about divine intervention, about suffering, about paternalism and who decides what, about responsibility. And then the next slide by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, I never say that right, language is the source of misunderstandings. And we tackled that. The next slide, and you don't have to read all this, you just have to know that I found it. So we searched in the Bible and we searched in the hymn book to find words that we thought were claimed as true, but not everyone would sit with that comfortably, that we could say those words in a different way that would include everybody. And so it was hard, but we went through and we found language, and the next slide is just more. You don't have to read the whole thing, but we were finding things that were said that divided people right down the line. And so we tried to separate that out and say, we're not going to talk like that. Now, the next slide has Humpty Dumpty, and that sounds very facetious very quickly, but when I use the word Humpty Dumpty said in a rather scornful tone, it means just what I choose it to mean, neither more nor less. The question is, said Alice, whether you can make words mean so many different things. The question is, said Humpty Dumpty, which is to be master? That's all. So we kind of took away that master idea, and we looked at the positives of a more liberal theology, because there's lots of them. But when it came down to meaning and metaphor and symbol and promises, we wanted to do what the next slide says. And I'm inviting the team to get ready for the guidelines. Beyond the beliefs that divide, to the commonly held values of love, justice, and compassion for self, others, and the planet, expressed in ordinary language. That's the rumble line. Expressed in ordinary language. Everyone here can believe more than that language, but we express it in ordinary language to include everybody. So the guidelines were written, and I'm going to introduce the team. Next slide. I'm just jumping ahead a little there, Peter. Thank you. The review time, the team that looked at VisionWorks, and we presented it last week, which was lovely, also took a look at the language guidelines. And we just polished it up a little because it was quite all right. But one of the things that we did with it was we shortened it a bit, because we realized that West Hill, again, isn't in transition towards that. We're here. And so we just took out a bit of the bridging comments and sat with it. So I'm going to ask Anita now, and we've got it on the PowerPoint. I'm going to ask Anita, who is a member of the VisionWorks team, to read this to us. And keep with Anita on the slides. So this is the language guideline, much unchanged from decades, but here it is about our pledge to use ordinary language. Anita?
Okay, thank you, Scott. Our VisionWorks document articulates the way we want to live with self, others, and the planet. It grounds our views on life, humanity, meaning, and morality in the interconnected existence we all share. It also identifies the core values we hold to be fundamental to healthy relationships: love, justice, compassion, honesty, openness, and integrity. We strive to communicate in ways that honor these commitments. We request of anyone representing or addressing West Hill in a formal capacity that the views they offer align with VisionWorks and are expressed in language that features contemporary and inclusive vocabulary, assumes the commonly held meanings of words, and clarifies the intended reference of metaphors. is free from any assertion or assumption that belief in a religious or spiritual claim will result in a particular outcome. Any statement, text, doctrine, creed, tradition, person, or experience is inerrant, infallible, or a source of absolute universal truth, has inherent authority, or holds a privileged status based on a claim for its supernatural or transcendent origin. We are committed to these guidelines, yet we also acknowledge our fallibility and affirm our openness to new understandings. We therefore review this document at least every 5 years and make revisions where necessary for greater clarity, relevance, and integrity.
Thank you, Anita. That's a lot. That's heavy. And there's lots of rumbling in that, because that does take a stand. It's a stance for ordinary language. I've got 2 books here. Don Cupid, a British theologian, philosopher, wrote a book on life being the operative word, and we've done that in VisionWorks. He's written many books. One of them is The Meaning of It All in Everyday Speech, and that's part of the commitment we've made with that. Peter, I'm going to jump a little, so if you could fly with me, just for the detail of that. But first, I'm going to ask, while I sort that slide, I'm going to ask the team members if they would give a brief sharing of what it was like to look at this language guideline. I'm going to ask Doug. I see Doug in the center of the screen there, so please, Doug. As soon as you're off mute. There we go.
Okay. Anyway, last Sunday, I mentioned that I joined the VisionWorks team with 2 main goals in mind. And first, I'd hoped that we could make these documents as positive as possible. I'm quite tired of having the progressive community being defined by what we don't believe or by what we reject, rather than by the positive values that we try to live by. And secondly, I wanted our documents to be clear and concise. I strongly believe that the greatest ideas are best expressed in a minimum of words. So if something's too long or too hard to read, it gets buried on a shelf somewhere. Now, Scott talked about the statements of faith and so on that most Christian denominations have. And you know how they're full of highfalutin language about God and Jesus and sin and redemption. And even the United Church has a bunch of doctrinal stuff that you're supposed to agree to before you can take a leadership role. But I know that West Hill doesn't use that kind of language anymore. So I really was excited about taking my first look at this original language document that Scott had sent us way, way back in July 2020. But I nearly fell off my chair when I saw that the traditional language was still there, although it was expressed in a negative way. Our old version of VisionWorks contained a kind of a shopping list of about 25 things that we don't believe. It says things like, we will not use language claiming that God is all powerful, or that God loves us, or answers prayers, or forgives sin, or cures diseases, or that Jesus died for our sins. And we won't use language claiming supernatural events, like Jesus walking on water and raising people from the dead. I found this really confusing, because I thought it was important for us to come up with a positive sounding document that would articulate what we stand for, like our values, rather than what we stand against, such as doctrine and God language. So after I recovered my balance and fired off a long email to the team, Scott quietly and patiently explained to me in our next Zoom session that the original language guidelines were written during a time when West Hill was transitioning from a more traditional religious language to a new way of thinking. So the many negative examples were simply there to help people understand what we were leaving behind during that transition. And another strong reaction I had to the original language guidelines was that I thought it sounded an awful lot like a legal document, which of course it definitely is not. To me, it sounded a bit like the Old Testament or the Ten Commandments with definitive declarations that thou shalt not do this, the language shall not do this, or the language shall not make certain doctrinal assertions, assumptions, or promises. So I jokingly told the team that maybe we should add a clause that says, thou shalt follow these guidelines under penalty of law. But as the team brought its collective wisdom to bear, and Scott focused his amazing language knowledge and his apparently magic typing skills, it resulted in the document that you just heard. It still contains many of the same ideas as the original language guidelines, but it is more positive, more clear, and more concise. And the team will tell you that right from the beginning, I got the dubious reputation as the word counter guy who kept saying, there are too many words. Let's find a shorter and clearer way to say it. Last week, I told you that VisionWorks got reduced from 1,500 words down to about 550. And I'm happy to report that we were able to reduce the language guidelines from its original 350 words to about 250. So I hope you will also agree that we improved its clarity at the same time. So I want to thank you good people of West Hill for giving me this chance to serve on this VisionWorks team. It was a life-enhancing experience for me to work together with this group of talented people on this exciting project. So thank you very much.
He was so difficult to work with, honestly. He was just so difficult to work with. It was a pleasure. And yes, we keep emphasizing, it was very important for us to identify the kind of words we were using that were being very misunderstood, and now we don't have to, and so that's great. Do Anita or John want to jump in? Well,
Anita, go before me.
Okay, Anita?
No, please, you first.
Oh dear, this happened all the time. Go ahead, John.
Right. I can only agree with Doug about the life-enhancing experience, but I can also confirm, absolutely for the avoidance of doubt, Doug did hold us accountable for all the numbers of words that we were using. And it was a valuable and enjoyable experience for all of that. When I first came to West Hill, it was the language that meant most to me. I didn't have to filter out beliefs or concepts I found uncomfortable. I felt myself able to throw myself wholeheartedly into the songs and the words of commitment because the language just was barrier-free. It neither promoted a theistic understanding nor advocated a non-theistic one. The biggest challenge I found was cultural. As a reserved Scotsman, I wasn't given to expressions of emotion. So here at West Hill, church was definitely different, but in a good way. It never occurred to me that West Hill had guidelines on the use of language until Scott shared these during a session at a PCN Britain conference in Leeds, England, a few years ago. It was only later that I thought I had a problem with it. And this stayed in the background of my mind until we began to review the guidelines as part of the VisionWorks review. The practical side of the review was fascinating, and actually having the original text alongside the draft of the proposed new text with Scott's typing skills and the unending interruptions from participants in the review suggesting other ways of putting things, it actually meant that Zoom was the ideal means for achieving that. It was very engaging, and we could happily have continued to review the language guidelines forever. The problem I referred to centered on whether the language guidelines contained restrictions on freedom of speech or thought, or were they an attempt to impose some form of thought control? But now, for me, they are the lens through which we express our values in VisionWorks. VisionWorks is an example of how we use language to communicate not just ideas, but the serious nature of our commitment to living out these values. The language guidelines in VisionWorks are so closely related, they could be in the same document. It was quite an experience having these kinds of thoughts rumbling around in my head while we were actually involved in the review. And sometimes it probably meant I kept quiet, which probably was a good thing. It was getting hold of the link between these two, the language guidelines and VisionWorks, which really transformed my understanding of the purpose of the document. If I had to sum it up, I would say it doesn't matter what you do or don't believe, as long as you are kindly. If you're not going to be kindly, then I'm afraid I will have to take a firm stand against you. And that, for me, encapsulates the guidelines.
Thank you, John. For those of you that don't know, John is in Scotland and lives in Scotland. He is our finance chair, which Zoom makes possible. Doug was an early member of the Canadian Centre for Progressive Christianity, and he's in Woodstock and wouldn't be with us except for Zoom, although he did pop in for visitors and travelers lunch occasionally when he could. Anita, I'm just going to ask you if you have some words. I know we're coming close to the time, but if I'm inviting you to enter.
Yeah, mine is just more from a practical point of view, because I'm chair of the M&P committee, Ministry and Personnel Committee. Our mandate is to help people when there is misunderstanding between congregation and ministry or lay personnel. And misunderstanding comes from lack of clarity, as you've already said, Scott. And so to be clear is kind. And I think in these language guidelines, we are clear to anybody coming in. And as you know, I'm chairing the search committee. So anybody who would be coming in as a supply minister or eventually a permanent minister would be clear from these guidelines what we expected in our church presentations when they are in a formal capacity, or any of us when we're in a formal capacity now know what is expected, and it's clear. And so if there were any disagreements or misunderstandings, we now have a document to refer to help us guide us through that. So for me, it had practical purpose as well as the definitions that you've shared earlier. That's it.
Thank you, Anita. I'm gonna just capture two really important thoughts, extremely controversial and very important. Number one is nothing from West Hill will ever tell you what you have to believe, or what you can't believe, what you must believe, or what you can say right in the room here, in our conversation time, even in the sharing time. No one's messing with your belief system. But we're also saying that nobody in any capacity, like right here into a camera on a Sunday morning, in a newsletter, in an e-blast, in any leadership of a committee, is going to tell you what to believe, what not to believe. And they are not going to make a promise that some rescue is going to come from another dimension. They are not going to tell you what any other dimensional being has to say about your life. That's up to you. And you can have a belief or not have a belief. But from the pulpit, as it were, from the newsletter, from any formal capacity, it's beyond the beliefs that divide to expressing all we need to express about life in ordinary language. I'm guessing the same language you use on Tuesday and Thursday in your workplace with your family. So it stays the same. And I'm just going to end with the conclusion to that. I'm sorry, Peter, if you could just move to almost the last black slide. No, troubles again. So I will read you the last slide. You know, if you're going to have problems of this nature, this is the bunch of people I'd want to have them with. There's a go for it and try, and we're going to overcome, and no tension. I mean, tension about the issues, but not between the people, and that's wonderful. So I'm going to read you the conclusion of VisionWorks, which sits in the same sense at the bottom of the language guidelines, are really just how we express ourselves in ordinary language. And it says this: as we strive to live in these ways as individuals in community, so that's us as part of West Hill, but it's also part of you and your community. As you live as an individual in community, we often soar and we often stumble, yet in joy and sorrow, in certainty and doubt, we travel together in a spirit of love. I invite any feedback, any questions, any talking about the rumbling, any comparison with what you've grown up with or what you're having a struggle with. We invite that conversation. And nobody in any official capacity will use words that are not in ordinary language and that don't express what's focused here is how we live with one another. Thank you for your attention. Some of that was a bit chewy and bumpy, but it's really important stuff. I invite you again on Wednesday to chew over the second section of the VisionWorks with us. And we're looking at an evening session too, because a lot of folks said they couldn't make the afternoon. We can do that too, because it's worthy stuff. And I learn every single time I dip into this stuff. Every single time. So thank you for that. See you Tuesday for wellness. See you Wednesday for VisionWorks. See you Thursday for coffee. And see you next week. What's the date next week? What's the date? 10. Okay, so the next week we welcome Christopher New from Southminster Steinhauer Church, our sister church in Edmonton. And he's a good friend. He's a great guy. You've heard him before. I've met with him, had supper with him. Just a great guy. I mean, he's a real great guy. And he's telling us about the difficulties in Edmonton and Alberta with the COVID. And it's just so heavy. They tried to meet like this in the church and they're backed away again. It's just, so he comes to us on Zoom, of course, delighted to be with us, and we're delighted to have him. And he's going to talk about his journey with music, and that'll be just beautiful. So next Sunday, take good care, be safe, be well, stay for the breakout room for a little if you like, but other than that, on you go, on your way, and use your words beautifully, and make me do the same. Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, lovely people on the screen. Wave to the people on the screen. Yes, and the people on the screen are waving to you. Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Looks great. Absolutely great. And I'm sorry, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Get on your screens. The link will come for Jeanne's service of... wanted it to be a West Hill-driven time. They're welcome to pop on, of course. And if you don't know Jeanne, I want to say one quick thing. This community is so beautiful that people from England that never had met Jeanne, never had seen her because she only came on the Zoom on the phone on her birthday.
We just lost you, Scott.
Yeah.
Her life and life together with music and song and shit. By Woodstock, by Scotland, by Oshawa, by London, by Kitchener, by by Africa there. Fred from Africa, great to see you. Goodbye, goodbye. Jeanne, thank you for your announcement and your celebrations. Randall, hello. See you again. And Ken, just naming everyone, Frank and Mel. And I already said hello to Fran, so hi, Ian. We're looking forward to, I'll connect with you two a little later on, and we'll, for planning. Great.
Bye, Fran. Bye, Ian.
Bye, Chris.
See you Sunday.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, bye all. Have a great week.
See you, Moreland, in the
Bye.
Ottawa area. Good to have you. So glad you joined. So glad you're still here. So terrific. And you, Don, right beside, you're sitting right beside Moreland, Don. So that's very nice on the screen. Okay, is this the, well, just we keep saying goodbye here. Keep people popping off. Well, not really popping off, but. And Frank there. Hello, Frank Dixon and company there. Welcome to you as well.
Goodbye, Scott. And Christine says goodbye too.
Goodbye. We'll see you soon. Hopefully see you soon. Hello, Anne. Anne McKechnie, also Anne Jackson, but hello, Anne McKechnie. Mm-hmm. And Suzanne, hello, Suzanne. And Michael, could you guys, I was just trying to do the break. Could you just do the break? Okay, we're doing the breakout room here. So just a little quiet. So I hushed them. There's people here, they're making a lot of noise. I mean, actually, if you like, these are the breakout people that stay for the, so wave to those folks. So look at that. Here's the people that have been here this morning. Look at there in the camera. Do you see? There we are. Look at that. They wish to be greeted. There we go. There's Donna Hall. Hello to Donna Hall.
Lovely.
And hello to Anne-Marie. And hello to Jill. And hello to Barb. How lovely.
Oh,
the crew.
great. Lovely.
Great. Great to be seen. Yeah, we can say great to be seen, right? Good to be seen. Thank you for that. And then Peter, of course. I don't know if you can swing it right to Peter. Peter, who could wave, if you could wave, Peter. There we go. That's Peter.
Hi, Peter.
Excellent. Thank you. This is great. This is great.
Should we have our masks on now that we're seeing the church people?
Yes. I should put mine on to greet them, actually. I'm allowed to speak this far away without a mask, but there it goes. Signs of COVID. I'm just going to say goodbye to these fine folks.
Actually had a woman in co-worker on day shift on say she thought she had seen me at 3 o'clock in Stratford. Said I kind of in bed at that time. She says I thought so. Says it's what I pictured you like with the mask off. So I backed off, took the mask down. She goes, nope, that wasn't you. Oh.
Doug and John, I just wanted to say thank you for your input on with respect to the VisionWorks. That was really helpful to hear from y'all and your personal perspectives. That must have taken you a while to just put your thoughts down like that, but really appreciate that. What a great idea. Thank you for the work you put into it.
Yeah, the whole thing was excellent.
It was great to have the opportunity.
Yeah, I said last week that it was an honor and a challenge, and that's putting it mildly. It was quite a challenge.
Well, we've been around a little bit, and as you know, it gets reviewed every 5 years. So we've seen some different variations of it. As I guess maybe you saw the history of it. I don't know how far back you went. I guess you saw the first or something, but maybe you had them all. I don't know, but it has evolved somewhat. But there's certainly a commonality there. But I'm so pleased that it gets I don't know, simpler and simpler. I mean,
the language that goes into
it would be great, if it be, and I don't, what's on one page,
how
right?
we
Just
say
so
the
succinct
things
and
that
simple,
we
but
do believe.
it's hard to do that. But very well done. Thanks.
Yeah, it was really quite a fascinating challenge and quite a fascinating journey to watch how VisionWorks had changed from 2004 through its various revisions. And you could see how it was following the changes that were happening in the church at West Hill. And they had to keep it started off with lots of religious language, and it gradually took it out and took it out and took it out until we ended up with what we have now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the use of commonly held words gives it such openness, and it's like fresh air. Breathe in deeply the fresh air of these ideas, rather than taking something that is given. Here it is, believe it, and repeat. It gave it energy and life.
Aye. You know, one of the slides that Scott had up in his perspective on language from the what is it called, the things from the galaxy, what was that called?
Cosmological Galaxy.
Yeah, and it was sort of posed that, you know, if you could hear if you could understand every language and culture and hear what everybody was saying, it would cause war. And before I read the last part of that paragraph, I was thinking it was going to go another way. The more you hear, you know, once you hear everybody's perspective, I was thinking it was going to say it would lean towards compassion. And it reminded me of Mark Twain said something like, traveling the world is fatal to prejudice. And I thought there's some truth to that. The more you travel, the more you get around, and the more you see other cultures and everything, you know, the world seems smaller, and you grow empathy, and prejudice just seems to naturally fall away. So I'd be interested to have that not a vote, but that discussion about whether knowing what people, understanding everybody's perspective sort of thing, would it lead to more empathy, or would it lead to war, as speculated by Doug in that the author in that thing to the galaxy? What do you think?
I think conversation does pave the pathway for understanding others and potentially for peace. And I think back to 4 or 5 years ago, when Greta started the West Hill Wants to Talk concept and visiting teams. We said, we have visiting teams that would love to come and join you. And there were a few groups that took advantage of that, and a few gatherings that did happen. But I think some organizations would be intimidated by the way that we challenge each other, and the way that we use our language and talk, that we say, well, let's not be absolute about that. Let's look at things from a different perspective. And, you know, that was part of the journey, and we're in a different place now, a very different place. Yeah. The recognition, you know, from the region and from the United Church, and we now get encouraging messages rather than punitive ones.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I've always said West Hill is a welcoming place for people that are, I use the word, skeptical about the existence of a supernatural being, as opposed to saying totally against or whatever, just skeptical about it or wondering about it. It's an open place to have that discussion, right? Because you don't have to look over your shoulder. This is what I loved about it. You don't have to look over your, can we say this here? Can we talk about that here? You know, which is common in most churches, right? We've been to places, we've been to other churches for, you know, a funeral that was quite religious. And, you know, you go up to the spouse of the person that we're celebrating the life of, sort of thing. And, you know, nice service and everything, goes, well, looks over shoulder, we're really not that religious. And yet it was, you know, a religious thing.
Apologizing.
It's almost apologizing, saying, you know, we're really not that religious, but that's what we got there.
We were going to hell. We were going to burn in hell because we didn't believe
that was a different one. Yeah, that was another one. You're going to hell. You know this one, David, right? You're going to hell if you're not. It's either our way or the highway to hell. Anyway.
We found that was with Doug's, that's with our study groups, is you could turn off your brain. Well, not turn off your brain, but turn off your having to reinterpret stuff. And for a couple of hours once a week, you could actually talk about stuff without having to think about it, you know, other than in a study group kind of fashion.
The thing I liked about it is I read it, it was an inspiration kind of a document as opposed to a rules document or you have to believe this or that. It's about good stuff, you know, behaving well. And sometimes we need to be reminded how to do that, you know, how to, you know, you can be silent or you be caring for someone. You could walk by someone that you knew was having difficulty, or you could, you know, show some empathy. And I think that the document that we're putting out, you know, makes you dig a little deeper to, you know, to reach out. So I think I really liked it, and it's a little long. I agree with Kevin. Maybe we could get it on one page some year, maybe in 10, 15, 20, whenever we revise it every 5 years, but it's good.
And I say that, yeah, thanks, Louise. I say that because we all have struggled, particularly in our early relationship with West Hill, struggled to explain exactly what's going on here to others, right? Because their head's scratching their head. Well, that doesn't make any sense. How can you have a minister that doesn't believe in God? You know, that does. How? It's impossible. It's how can you be part of a church and not, you know, follow the doctrine? And it's hard to explain sometimes. But it would be nice if we had the 20-second elevator speech, which some of us have sort of learned to garner. Essentially, what I try to say is, you know, it's a place where we can speak about anything as long as we're respectful of one another, and anyone is welcome as long as they are respectful of one another. So someone who comes in with, you know, a homophobic or any other prejudice or that doesn't respect others, that's where we take our stand. Because people say, well, then what do you invite anybody there? You don't care who comes in? Well, no, we don't, as long as they can be respectful. That's the requirement, you know. Anyway.
Right, I must go, but before I do, Mike, could I ask you, would it be possible to email me a copy of the VisionWorks document? Because I'd like to have it in front of me to read it. Is it possible to have a copy?
It'd be possible to do that. I'm just not sure if I have your email address, Chris.
No, well, I can certainly give you that. And I was just quickly going to say, it's not on the website at the moment, is it?
Chris, it is embedded in a recent email. There's a hot link because you know, right, when it talks about the VisionWorks, then you'll see there's a hot link and you can click on it. Because I read it the other day from an email.
So how do I access that?
Well, it was a hot link in one of the emails, like the e-blasts from West Hill.
Oh, right. Okay.
A few days ago, last week, I think.
I probably missed it. Yeah. Okay. I'll check it out. That's great.
Just give us your email address and Mike can send that. What is your email address?
And hopefully it will go on the website soon. I think it's important to get it out there. And
that is the plan. Yes, indeed.
We need to show.
Can I give you my email address as well to receive the same thing?
Yes.
Whenever you're ready.
Well, let Chris go first.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah. It's chris.avis, as in my name, CHRIS .avis, as in rent a car, which is what I usually say, which clarifies it. Though unfortunately, that's just a pretense. And then the figure 2, chris.avis2 at hotmail.com. That'll reach me.
We got that.
Got it.
Okay, David.
David Whaley. WHEALY.
Small case?
Everything small.
Yeah, it doesn't matter these days, does it? I don't think.
Go ahead.
At yahoo.ca.
Got it. Okay.
Is that correct, what you just said, that it doesn't matter when you're typing in an email address whether you use upper or lowercase?
It used to matter, but I forget where I heard it, but I think it was a fairly reputable source.
Okay, I'll try it sometime.
Let's try it.
Yeah. Is the gentleman who
you could probably Google it.
Count words still there?
Doug's here.
I can't see on
Yes,
screen
yes.
here.
Oh,
Yes, the word meter. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Doug.
Yep. What do you want to know?
I just want to share that about, 5 years ago when Oasis came to Canada, and the new organization was a new Oasis setup occurred downtown with Greta's help in Toronto. They had a very, very brief set of 4 things they stood for. I really don't remember them or where I could find them, maybe just looking up Oasis online. But it was brilliant from my point of view. It was something that on the order of we believe that we should not harm anyone. Okay, I'm just making that up, but it was that kind of a 5-word sentence and 5 sentences long. And I loved it because I felt right at home with everything they said.
I know a few years ago, the United Church Board of Evangelism and Social Service had a kind of a slogan, and they put it on big posters that I had, nailed up in my wall in my house for a while. And I thought they boiled it down to about as simple as you can get in terms of values. It simply said in 2 words, live, love. And I thought, wow, there is the message, about as short as you can say it.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Live, love.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, the 2029 or whatever version of VisionWorks will maybe down to do a sentence or something. I have one technical question I wanted to throw out. Maybe Mike would be the best person to listen to this. Would it be possible to have a Zoom camera facing the congregation so that we could see a picture of who's in the church and what the reactions are, and when they wave, we can actually see them? There could be one little square on the Zoom screen for us.
Certainly it would be possible. I've seen other groups that do that so that you could get sort of a truly interactive hybrid gathering.
Yeah, good idea.
You have a live group, and then you have a group that is remote, and they could interact with each other. But that takes a little bit more technology. I think Glenn and Peter are aware of how that might be done. And I think we are hoping to head in that direction, but we're not quite there yet.
It'd be a little anticlimactic when he's speaking and you turn around, he's speaking to 5 or 6 people.
Well,
that will change probably as our restrictions.
We could also have to figure out the logistics of the sound, because if it has any vocal to it, you get the repeat would be insane.
Yeah.
Well, we could hear it. We could hear them clapping and laughing and that sort of thing. We just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So it could be a silent camera that's on mute.
Yeah.
It's just sitting there on a separate Zoom channel. But
it can't be on mute. It can't be taking in sound, because otherwise it'll be a repeat, right?
No, they'd have to be on mute.
No, it's beyond mute. If it's just hearing stuff.
We'd still.
No, you're right. I remember Dennis did this when we were having problems with Randy with the echo. And what he did is he put him in the waiting room, but you could still see. How did he do that? Yeah, he put him in the waiting room, so I don't think he could see him then. But that's what he had to do with his second device. Do you remember this? It was a few weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, they can look at that.
Yeah.
I'm going to sign off. I'm going to sign off. I'm looking forward to Wednesday night tribute to Jeanne, 7:00 on Wednesday. That's what Scott was trying to get in when he was sort of in and out of the audio, but looking forward to that. See y'all.
Okay. Mike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll see some of you on Tuesday, is it? Or Monday? Tuesday.
Mike.
Mike.
yes.
Bye-bye, John. Enjoy your supper.
Go ahead, Chris.
It will be soon. It'll be soon. Nice to see if I can
Mike,
get-
before you sign off,
Do you mind if I give you my email for a copy of the VisionWorks?
Randall, of course.
Please, thank you. It's
And go ahead.
RRH Nature.
Sorry, RRH Nature.
Nature, the word, NATURE.
Got it.
At gmail.com.
Got it. Okay. I'll get on to that. Thank you, Randall.
Thank you.
Okay. Keep well, everyone. John?
Yep.
Done and well said. Appreciated your comments.
No, that was fine. We were, I think Scott's been rather busy at work this week.
Yes.
And we only got an email from him. Well, it was, for me, it was yesterday afternoon.
Right.
So it was a case of scratch the old head and try and put some thoughts together.
Well, you put them together quite clearly and quite well.
Well, you just have to, sometimes the more time you have to agonize over it, the harder it is when you're on a tight deadline, you know.
Indeed.
It comes easier.
And you know, we didn't have the usual format with Scott doing his grounded, guided, and growing. But I mean, all throughout that were our values and our approaches and how we address things. But we didn't really need that part because the language all steered towards those things and those values.
It just pointed so strongly in that direction.
Yeah, for sure. And so we will be trying the board meeting at a time, hopefully that will fit for you.
I appreciate it. It means a lot to me that this is happening. I know it will accommodate other people as well, but
yes,
speaking personally, it means a lot to me to be able to do that.
Well, you know, I regret that we hadn't done it earlier. We needed to kind of shake things up and say, well, why not? I mean, if I had an organization that regularly met and starting at midnight, I wouldn't want to be there either. So, we're up, so we'll just pick a time that will work for you, and let's give it a go. And hopefully, you know, I have a few people that said, well, I wasn't asked about having the meeting at 1 o'clock because it doesn't work for me. But guess what? There is no one time that's going to work for everyone.
It's not, and even for those that even if 7 o'clock works for most people, it doesn't work for everybody all the time.
No.
So but we do need a little bit of give and take.
Why should you be the guy thrown under the bus all the time or told, you don't mind staying up all night? We'd be happy to have you. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm hoping that I'll be able to stay up long enough to be a small part, take part in Jeanne's tribute on Wednesday evening.
Yeah, I think that will be, well, depending on how much people say, but I think that would be less than an hour. So hopefully that would.
Yeah. I remember one service, I can't remember when it was now, but somebody asked the question, the difference between apathy and ignorance, or ignorance and apathy. And a second later, the response, I don't know, I don't care, came from the back. I mean, it was so quick.
Yeah.
Jeanne would have been, she must have been 98 or thereabouts, you know, sharp as a razor,
Indeed.
Sharp as a tack. Anyway.
She will be missed.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. And we'll
keep well.
Be in touch. You keep well.